Brave and Her podcast, where we inspire, empower, and motivate by sharing our stories of bravery. I strongly believe that by sharing our stories, we open ourselves to healing, but also serve to give hope and inspiration to those who are dealing with a tough situation. We will talk about all topics under the sun. Now let's hear your stories of bravery. Hey girl, thank you for being here in this episode. I have Tammy Udowanko, sorry.
Okay.
Udowanko, and she's the host of the Path To Transformation, and she's here to talk to us about her journey on how she grieved the loss of her mom. Hi Tammy, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being brave and sharing your story. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Tammy. I'm 27. I'm from outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I she already mentioned, I posted my podcast, Path To Transformation, and I am a career and life transitions coach as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. So you're here to talk about your grieving process of when grieving the loss of your mom. Do you want to tell us a little bit of the story of how you lost your mom?
Absolutely, yes. So I lost her in 2019, and so I was only, that was like 3 years ago. So I was 24 or whatever. And so first off, it wasn't expected. It was definitely unexpected. But my mom, since like 2009, like her health was like slowly kind of declining. And like the first thing that she noticed that she had wrong was like ringing in her ear. Like she woke up one day and like she like couldn't hear out of her ear. And from there, it became like vertigo sometimes. So that's like when like our eyes are like kind of moving, can't get like the balance, but like even though like our feet are on the ground. And yeah, so the ringing in her ear, and like she'd like complain about that all the time, and like I like didn't understand it. Like now I understand it, but so then from there it was just she started to be in pain and like chronic back pain, and like this like her like it would go almost like to her legs as well. So she had like back surgery or two, and like she was a nurse, so but yeah, so she was really like frustrated because nobody was answering like what's wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody could give like, this is what's wrong, you have this. So she was very like defeated at times, and like the ringing was just like faint, but it was constant, so it can like drive a person off, drive for somebody crazy. But even though she wasn't, but like I can imagine,
yeah, like annoyed, right, or frustrated. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right. So it definitely, like, I'm quite like the optimist, but I sometimes I would be like, oh, like, well, maybe you should like go for a walk, or like let's like do something. And it was kind of like like her, she kind of like wouldn't feel like it, or just it definitely affected the mental health too, is what I'm trying to say. So right. The quality of life, her life definitely like declined. So she had a back surgery in like 2018, I'm sorry. And yes, from there, she just, after the surgery, she went on like the medicine that they give, and that was just not a good experience, because painkillers can be not great, as I'm sure your listeners know. But yeah, so after that, she like was losing weight and just like sleeping a lot, and it was crazy because she was always like not super thin, but like average size woman, but like to see her get like smaller than like, not that I'm small, but like my size, I've never saw that. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I just remember, you know, I was going through burnout during that time, and I would call her like, you know, upset, crying, and like, oh, I'm so stressed. And like, so I called her one day in March, and I was upset. I was like, Mom, like, they didn't tell me this like student was coming back, and the student was like not good before. So I'm like, they didn't tell me she re-entered the school and I would have her in my class again, and like, you know, just upset. But like when I answered the call, she was kind of out of breath, kind of like, and I was like, are you okay? And she's like, oh yeah, like just not feeling well. And in my mind, I'm like, you're usually not feeling well. So
Right.
like, I was like, okay. And then I wasn't dismissive and like, I don't want to hear it, but I was just kind of like, oh, like you usually aren't feeling well. Like okay.
it just became normal.
Right, exactly. So I was just like, oh, I didn't really think too much of it. And then I was on the phone with her, and then, you know, was hanging up. I'm like, okay, like, love you, like, bye. So I'm teaching, and reflecting back now I see it, but it was like 1 or 2 p.m. and I was like, I got this weird sensation, and like I remember like it getting really bright outside, and I got this weird sensation, like all the kids are like calm, which was unusual. They're all like calm, and I'm like, what the heck? Like I didn't think anything of it, but looking back I was like, what? So anyway, try to call my mom after school, which is, you know, 4 or 5 p.m. Try to call her after work, try to call my dad after work, like not getting anybody. So I, you know, try to call again. I text, like call my dad, like nothing. And then I'm like, oh wait, that's right, they had an appointment. Because at first I was like worried, and then I'm like, no, they had an appointment. And, you know, I go home, have my dinner, put on the Netflix, whatever, and I get a phone call I got a text from my cousin, and it said, Tammy, like, I know how much your mom loved you, da 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 da. I'm getting like chills now, and I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Like
past tense, yeah.
Right. I know, like literally, like I know. So I called my cousin, and I'm like starting to like what are you talking about? Like what? Because I couldn't get a hold of anybody, and I was like, what are you talking? And she's like, I'm sorry, like I have to go in class or whatever, because she's in college. So I call my brother, and I'm like, like what happened? And Alex is like, you know, like mom passed away, and like I just had that like TV like moment from, you know, a movie or whatever, like, you know, crash to the ground, and just like uncontrollable, like like I literally felt like in that moment my world like crashed. I felt so vulnerable, so alone, because I think I don't want to compare losses, but when a caregiver that like raises you, I feel passes, it's like this vulnerability, like I'm alone now, like who's there for me? So it wasn't my cousin's fault that like she didn't know I knew. But then my brother was like, Dad's on his way, and he was literally there in like 2 minutes, because I lived alone at the time. But yeah, so that's kind of how, sorry, like that was a little long, but that's kind of how I figured out like it happened.
So after that moment, like at one point, you know, how long did it take, or at what point did you start like the grieving process?
So it felt like a movie till like, you know, even past the funeral, but I just felt like I was like walking on like air, kind of, and like
unreal, or like you couldn't believe that what's happening.
Right. It just felt like unreal. Like I felt like I was like sitting down, and like people were fast forwarding like around me. Like I just didn't feel like I was present. Like I didn't feel real. It felt unreal. So I was like, I like the process. I mean, I think I was kind of like carrying on throughout my day. Like I went home to my parents' house, and like family came over and like stuff. And yeah, I just like, I would cry like here and there, but I didn't really, nothing really, you know, hit me almost. So, and then we had the funeral, and even then it was just like what? This is my life now? So I think to like answer your question, I think after, March, then it was, well, I had a very bad, like my mental health declined a lot, and I had to start to work on like getting help, and so the summer was good for me, and then the fall also, but I hopped back into work, into grad school. So to really start the healing process, I feel for me didn't really start till like the pandemic happened a year later. Yes, because I was able to stop, pause, didn't have any distractions. Not that I was burying myself in it, because I thought I was letting myself heal, but I really didn't dedicate, the time to therapy or to looking at the pictures, to literally just like crying. So I feel like, it wasn't necessarily like, 2 weeks and then I felt good. It was like a year till I like was like, okay, time to look at this.
Yeah, maybe you were just trying to like mask that, and maybe like, because maybe you were like in shock, right? Still, and
Yes.
not wanting to admit that that was your new reality until you had no choice, right? Like, most of us or all of us were forced to slow down, and when the pandemic started, and maybe that's when you realize, okay, now I have to, like, you were kind of forced into the grieving process, into the um just taking care of that you weren't able before.
Right. Yes, I wasn't able to, and I definitely was like in the shock for sure. I definitely was. And I think then going home to their house, staying there during the pandemic, that was a big thing that contributed, because I'm like, okay, dad's at work, because he was like, essential worker. I'm here alone. What the heck? Like it was the new like normal. I'm like, what? So yeah, definitely that also contributed to me realizing.
So once you started during the grieving process, once the pandemic hit and you were slowed down and you were forced to deal with your grieving, what did you do, or what are you still doing daily to help with that, to help you with the grieving process?
So at the time, I definitely was going to therapy once a week, and I started to focus more on doing activities and hobbies that I enjoyed. Again, we had so much time, so I'm like, oh, let me like get back to painting, or like let me go for a walk. So those things really started to help me feel a lot better. And like I mentioned, like allowing myself to cry, of course, that was very helpful. But yeah, so starting to really notice like, wow, like doing things that bring me joy, like I'm starting to feel better and like more like myself, my new normal, my new self. And I started to discover my path of the coaching. But I started to learn like that our health isn't just mental or physical, it's the spiritual aspect, doing things that like lift our spirits. So that now has helped me so much, focusing on holistic health. So I make sure that I do tend to my mental health. I do make sure I tend to my physical health by like working out, or getting sleep, getting proper nutrition. And now I definitely make sure to have connections with others, spend time with myself, connect, and like spend time in nature. Those things all still help me, like to this day, feel like my best self.
Yeah. Do you notice a difference between before, like that 1 year where you weren't allowing yourself to really grieve, and the difference between your mental health during that time and after, when you allowed yourself to grieve and took care of your mental and your emotional health?
You said, sorry, you said, did I notice a difference?
Yes. So did you notice a difference, or do you notice a difference between, when you didn't allow yourself to grieve, and then once you allow yourself to grieve?
Yeah, I think it really helped to not have so much on my plate. And I know that's so hard for people to like get rid of, because we have jobs, we have school, some people have kids, like, but I think I noticed that like one of the reasons why I couldn't fully grieve is because I still had to, get the grad school work in and like all that. So I noticed that like once the grad school fell away, well, I finished. And like once work, I was forced to slow down from work. I feel like that's when I noticed like it was like better for me. And I know it's so hard for like people to be able to have that. We're only given like 2 weeks, I think, for most jobs.
Well, right. And yeah, and 2 weeks is not, it's not enough.
Never.
I think some people grieve like their entire life, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, I think, and I know, I don't want to jump ahead maybe because I'm sure you had to ask another question, but yeah, it's definitely not a one thing or 1 month thing, 2 months, a year, 2, 3. It's a new normal for people.
It's a whole process that you have to work on every day.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Do you have a word, quote, song, Bible verse, poem, something that just keeps you going through, either you're having a hard day or hard season, or you're going through something? Do you have something that just keeps you going?
Yeah, so I spoke on this on Instagram the other day, but I love having like a symbol from my mom. And sometimes people like start to see things after their loved one passes away. And for me, I started to see like cardinals, red cardinals. And that was like, she always loved them like around Christmas time, like especially like the decoration. And I know if you look it up, like people say they are like, a sign from heavens or whatever. But yeah, so that really helps me keep like one of the things that helps me keep moving forward, because especially like I feel like they're sent to me like when I'm in a difficult conversation, like on the phone, like I look out the window here and I'm like, oh my God, like there's a cardinal. Or I'm on a walk, or I'm worried about something, having some self-doubt, and like one flies in front of me and I'm like, all right, I got this. And I think also like just remembering kind of like my why, and like because her story is very tied into like what I'm doing now. So I think that also helps me keep, going on, moving forward, is just remembering like I want other women to take care of their health. So she's a big part of like my why when I think about it.
That's awesome. What will you tell, or what advice do you have for that woman who might be listening and is going through a grieving process, or grieving a loved one?
So I know touched on it a second ago a little bit, but few things about grief, because I feel like there's so many like misconceptions, like or things that we hear from whoever. But grief is not a linear process. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. And I feel like a lot of people compare to another person, like, oh, like so and so, went back to work in 2 weeks, like I should be able to do the same. Like that very well might not be the case for you. And I don't think that there is necessarily like stages of grief. So I think it can come in waves. And so, it could be, you're having a great week and it's like, yes. And then I might see like a teenager or a woman with her mom out at brunch, and I'm like, well, I don't have that. And then I could like start to feel like a little like,
like you
sadness going on.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think there could be like, different triggers, but I think it's definitely waves from my experience. And yes, like just we can't compare to another person. And I think also that it's a new way of life. It's not, we can't really get our old life back, but we can learn to live with the grief, but gain like a new normal. Because I think, some people are like, oh, I just want it to be like how it was. And it's like, well, it's not.
Right.
But like you learn to live with the grief. Is what I'm trying to say. If the days become easier, like the grief it might not never be like easy. It's always gonna, hurt. But the days will get easier.
Right.
As you go on, as you move forward.
And I like that you said that it's not a linear process, that it looks different for everybody.
Yes, I think that's so important, because I know, and of course, grief also like isn't, I should, say too, grief could be like, it's not only losing a loved one, it could be a pet, and it could be a job, a marriage. So it's not, so like even that, like that's not linear too. Like everybody grieves it differently. No matter what the loss is, it's different.
Right. And with that, do you want to just tell us a little bit about your podcast and, and then also where we can find you, where we can follow your journey, all that stuff?
Yeah, sure. So my podcast is the Path to Transformation, and talk a lot about wellness and burnout and how to help ourselves and mindset. So all those kind of topics, and that is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And my Instagram is Tammy, so TAMMYU with the letter _wellness, and there you'll see like I have like a free book club that people could join. I talk about, my offers, and yeah, you can follow the grief journey. And I talk about all things burnout and stress and work and career and life. So yeah, so that's where you can find me.
Awesome. And I'll have her information also in the description box, or so I'll have her Instagram and all the links that you want me to share. Thank you so much, Tammy, for being brave and sharing your story. I know it's not easy talking about something so hard, like losing your mom. And I don't really personally know you, but I want to say that I'm proud of how you're handling your grief. You're putting out content to also help others with their grieving process.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I will talk to you in the next episode.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode inspired you. If you like this podcast, please share on social media and tag me on Instagram @TheBraveandHer. I would love to hear your stories of bravery.